So now we're going to go in and we're going to sew kind of the finished edge onto this and see what happens. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new around here and don't know who I am, my name is Madison. I'm a high school fashion design teacher by day and a seamstress and YouTuber by night and by weekend, creating content all about sewing and style to share my love and passion for fashion with you all. I'm so excited that you're stopping by today's video and my channel because today we are diving into a very fun DIY / thrift flip video. So like I said, this video is really like a DIY / thrift flip video, but it is focused on trends for this year, specifically some trends that I did not really mention or talk about in my 2021 trends video that I filmed back in January. And so these are kind of some trends that I've seen pop up and also some trends that kind of look very interesting and I kind of want to try them out. I have no clue if I could pull them off, but we shall see. So I thought it would be fun to kind of film a video about this process and also turn it into a DIY and thrift flip to show you all how you can easily, in many ways, create trends and pieces that fit the fashions of the season without breaking the bank and spending a lot of money. So we're gonna dive into this. A lot of these trends really are very Gen Z, so it's kind of funny that I'm trying them out because I am not Gen Z. I am much more of a millennial if you look at year-wise, since I am 25, but my style in many ways tends to a little bit more towards Gen Z. I mean, I started wearing a metal part like a year ago, so if that doesn't make me Gen Z style-wise, I don't know what does, even though my thought process and mindset towards the world is much more millennial. But anyways, enough about that. Let's dive into these thrift flip and DIYs and see if they work out or if they are a complete flop. Alright, so I went thrifting about a week ago and I grabbed some things that I thought would work for these thrift flips. So there are 3 things that we are going to be focusing on in today's video. One is the sweater vest, which I honestly am a fan of and I do like them, and I've already kind of started integrating them into some of my styles. So I got this giant yellow sweater vest from the guys section at Goodwill. And so basically what we're going to be doing for this is we are going to be cropping it because the sweater vest trend really is about being oversized, kind of focusing on the emphasis and proportion of the style. And so we're basically going to be cropping this, so it's a super easy thrift flip and DIY. The other trend though is the super cropped sweater trend. Those are the sweaters and like the sweatshirts that literally aren't even a crop top. They just go across the shoulders and then they have sleeves. And honestly, this trend kind of boggles my mind. I don't understand it because it has no function whatsoever, but it's kind of a super interesting style. So I thought, why not try to DIY this? We'll see how it turns out. Like I said, this is the one that could totally flop and chances are it probably won't even look good on me, but I've gotten some pieces that we're going to try to turn into the super cropped kind of sweater trend. So the first one is this old sweatshirt. So one of the super crop trends is to do it to sweatshirts, and then the other one is to do it to sweaters for a little bit more like upscale stylish look. So we have this gray sweatshirt which will be very easy to crop. So that's the first one. The other one is going to be cropping to sweaters. So this is the one that's going to get a little bit tricky considering that sweaters are knit, and when you cut knit they start to unravel. So this one could completely flop. But we have this gray and black and white Liz Claiborne turtleneck sweater. A lot of the super crop sweaters that I've been seeing have turtlenecks, so we're gonna run with that and we're gonna see how this works to crop it. The other one is this super soft peachy sweater. This one might not work to crop, but we're going to attempt it as well. And then the other thing that we are going to be doing in today's video, it's not a thrift flip, but it is a fun DIY, is we're gonna be attempting to make a bucket hat. I really have not jumped on board with this trend, but it's definitely becoming more of a thing this year in 2021. And I remember like bucket hats being a thing when I was growing up and when I was little. I've never really been a fan of them, but I thought it'd be fun to just make one and see how it would look. It might be a fun hat to wear in the summertime. So I had this white denim lying around that I've had for a couple of years, so we're going to find a free pattern online and we're going to attempt a bucket hat, since that is also a trend for this year, and then we're gonna put it all together and see how it works. So let's get started.
So the first step of this process was deciding how I was going to adjust all of these sweaters into the new styles I wanted them to turn into. So it was super handy to have my mannequins for Mannequin Mall so that I could just easily fit all my sweaters onto them and then pin them, make adjustments, draw lines of where I wanted to cut and where I would be cropping them and sewing them up. If you don't have a mannequin, you can easily fit them to yourself, but having a mannequin definitely saves me in so many of my projects. So for my super crop sweaters, all I did was draw a curve to the front and the back of my sweater and then just cut the bottom part of my sweater off. And then later on I'm going to go finish that raw edge.
Okay, so we cut and cropped this gray one. I really think that this is going to be the one that turns out the best for the super cropped look, but we're not just going to leave it because obviously it's knitted, and if you stretch it, it literally will come unravel and it's just not super professional looking. So my idea was to take the bottom half of the sweater that was left, and since the bottom edge of this is finished, either create some kind of edging that I'm going to sew onto this, or I'm going to cut it across the warp, which is the up and down lines, so that way the lines run opposite, and create some kind of bias tape that goes along the edge and kind of finishes it off, but also helps it to be fitted. So we shall see how that goes. I might start off using the finished hem of the sweater first and cut it about 1 inch, and then we're going to just sew it onto the edge up here. And then if that doesn't work, we will turn it underneath and kind of sew it on. So this is what the front looks like. And this is what the back looks like. So kind of the whole idea of the cropped, super cropped sweater is that it comes up really high and then it goes right underneath the arms. Most of them just connect right at the sleeves. So the sleeves are kind of like a raglan that connects, but obviously we're using a sweater, so we have set-in sleeves. So now we're going to go in and we're going to sew kind of the finished edge onto this and see what happens.
So because sweaters are knit and when you cut them they don't just fray but they unravel, I had to make sure that I finished the edge of this curve somehow. So I decided to use the finished edge of the sweater. I would cut it off about 1 inch, and then all I did was just, I'm going to stretch that and sew it around the curve of my opening to finish the edges and also give it a more fitted look. So I actually serged my raw edges before I sewed this together. That way those raw edges also wouldn't fray, and it worked out pretty well, but you'll see in the coming slides how the sweater stretched a lot. It ended up being a little bit wavy. So once the finished bottom edge of my sweater was pinned onto the curve that I had cut, I just sewed it on my machine, and then I'm eventually going to fold that down and top stitch it into place so it doesn't go anywhere. You might want to change the tension on your machine so it doesn't stretch your knit quite as much, and I'll show you what I did in a little bit. So because it's not really possible to iron and press down knit fabric or sweater, I decided to fold my stitches that I had just created inwards, pin those down, and then I'm going to top stitch that edge that I sewed on so that it has a really flat finish and lays a lot better along the curves of this cropped sweater.
Since sewing with a knit can be a little stretchy just because knits stretch a lot, and you kind of have to play around with your tension, it can be a little bit tough. I went ahead and changed my stitch width to 3.5 rather than its regular low number. This way my stitches are actually spaced out a lot more, so they aren't quite as tight and they don't pull my knit fabric quite as tight. You could probably go even higher and it might even work a lot better. I just sewed mine on a regular stitch. I've also heard that these stitches, this 5 and this 6, are really great for stretchy fabric, but I wanted to just stick with my regular stitch for this one and then make it a little bit looser, and it didn't turn out all too bad. We shall see how it actually looks once it's worn, but so far not bad. For the black and white sweater, I'm going back in and I'm taking up the arms a little bit right underneath where the sleeves fit. Since this part stretched so much, I kind of need to elongate the underseam of the sleeve so that it fits a little bit tighter around the chest. So we'll see if this will fix it. So this is what it looks like after I serged both the edges. We sewed this finished hem of the regular sweater onto this, and then we flip the raw edges under and top stitch it. It definitely has a little bit of kind of some waves and a little bit of wonkiness, but I think that it could work. We'll have to see once we actually try it on. but it doesn't look all too bad. I think I'm going to play with the tension on the neck sweater to see if we can kind of get rid of some of this stretch and kind of try to keep the sweater the same shape that it was originally.
For the PG Coral sweater, I'm going to take the exact same method that I did for the kind of charcoal sweater. We're just going to cut curves along the front and the back. Now this sweater is a lot stretchier and a lot more delicate, so I still use the same method. It just ended up looking a tad bit different, but we cut the finished bottom off of the original sweater and then we just pinned that around the edges. I opted not to serge this one just because I felt the serging actually stretched out my sweater on the first piece, so it actually kind of didn't bubble and wave quite as much on this one, but we stitched it down and then we went ahead and turned it to top stitch it just like the gray sweater to finish off those curves on the front. So here's what the pinky peach sweater looks like after I adapted and cropped it. I finished the edge by sewing on the finished edge of the sweater originally along the curve, and then I also top stitched it. So just like the first two sweaters, we are going to take the exact same method for this sweatshirt. Now this sweatshirt has raglan sleeves, so it's a little bit different of a style, but we're still going to just do the same thing, cut a curve, and then we're going to cut that bottom of the sweatshirt off to sew on. Now one thing that I liked about this sweatshirt flip is that the bottom of the sweatshirt is actually smaller, so the fit of this is a lot more kind of sporty, but it also fits a whole lot better to the curves of your body, as you will see in a minute. And I also decided to just serge this straight onto the cut edge of the sweatshirt rather than sewing it on my regular sewing machine, and I really like how it turned out a whole lot better. So here's what this sweatshirt looks like after it's cropped. I actually really like this. Usually I'm not a super huge sporty person, but I kind of just really like how this turned out. It's very like unique, but also very stylish because obviously this is a trend right now. Alright, now on to adapting the fabulous yellow sweater vest that I got from Goodwill. So this is a super easy flip. All you do is decide kind of what length you are wanting to crop this sweater vest to, and then you basically just fold that up. You're not even going to cut off the finished edge of the sweater, you are just going to pin along that, and that's where your seam is going to be. After your seam is sewn, then you are going to cut off all of the excess sweater and then just flip the bottom edge down. It's super easy. So once you've folded and sewn the bottom of the sweater to the length that you want, then you can go in and cut off all of the excess. And then it's up to you if you want to finish the edge of the seam. I eventually decided to use my serger to serge it. You could also just use a zigzag, or you could leave it. This sweater really is not going to unravel quite as much as other sweaters, so you'd probably be fine to leave it as is. One thing I realized with using my serger is that it did kind of change the tension at the bottom of this sweater and kind of gave it a little bit of a wavy effect, but it's really not that bad when you're wearing it.
So here is the cropped sweater vest. The bottom is a little wonky, but I feel like once you put it on and style it, it will look a lot better. It's just super hard to work with very like real knits from sweaters on your machine because they stretch so much and there's only so much adaptations you can do to your tension. So it doesn't look dreadful, and I think it will look even better on, but we're just reattaching the smaller portion of the bottom of a sweater to the very wide middle section, so that's why it's a little bit wonky. So we'll have to see how it actually fits. You could kind of go in and top stitch this, but I feel like it would end up kind of stretching it more than you wanted to, and I really don't want to see a top stitch, so we'll kind of see how this looks once it's styled. Okay, so the last thing that we're making in this DIY 2021 trends video is a bucket hat. Now, like, I like hats, but I don't really wear them all the time except for certain seasons, and I honestly have not really liked the bucket hats, but I just keep seeing them pop up, and I see people that kind of style them in super fun ways, and I feel like it definitely fits that more kind of urbany street style side of fashion that I am very intrigued by and honestly really love. I feel like a bucket hat doesn't necessarily fit like my everyday style, but maybe like certain places I go or certain styles I wear, a bucket hat would work. So we're going to attempt this, and we're going to make it out of white denim, because this is a really good kind of mid-weight, heavyweight structured fabric that I have. I'm pretty sure you could use most fabrics, especially if you make it double layered. So I'm using a free downloadable pattern that I got from the Essentials Club. So Maddie has a fantastic YouTube channel if you want some really great sewing videos and content, especially things that focus on your basic foundations and essentials in your closet. And so she has two different bucket hat tutorials. One is a reversible bucket hat and the other one is a single layer, and she also created a free downloadable pattern for it. So we're going to be using her pattern. So if you're watching this and you want to attempt the bucket hat for yourself, and my tutorial is super short because it really is going to be a very short rundown, definitely go check hers out, and also go check out her channel. But we are going to be using her bucket hat. It has three pieces: the top, the headband, which is the part that goes around your head, and then the brim. So I think I'm going to be making the reversible style, not because I want it to be reversible, but because I want it to have more structure to it. So it's going to have a lining and an outer side of the hat, and I think I'm just going to make both of them out of the denim, and we'll see how it works. So let's dive into that.
So if you're wanting to make a bucket hat, I would seriously suggest to go check out Maddie's video on the Essentials Club on YouTube. Basically just followed her entire video when making this hat, and I used her pattern, so it was super easy to keep up with, and it was also a super easy project to make. You just have three pieces, you cut some of them multiple times, you sew the circle, which is the top of the hat, to the kind of headband, and then you sew the rims on, and it's very, very easy. So this is me sewing it. Now, because I wanted my bucket hat to have a lot more structure, I'm using this white canvas, and I also made the reversible hat so that I would actually have two layers. So essentially I made two hats and then I sewed them together. So here's the finished bucket hat. It turned out so well, and I'm actually so in love with this. I think it's just so cute, and the funny thing is that it reminds me of when I was little so much, because bucket hats were definitely in style then. For watching today's video. It was so much fun trying my hand and making my own version of very popular 2021 trends, so I hope that you had fun watching it and maybe try some of these out for yourself. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you were inspired, and also subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on new projects in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.